Week 7 of the 2023 season may go down as one of the worst for running backs this year. We've got 6 teams on a bye right now. We've got multiple running backs injured, and we have several backfields where we have no clue who the starter is going to be or who's going to get the most touches. But I'm here to help you try and make sense of all of it, so let's hop into my top 30 rankings for Week 7 of 2023. Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? There is a whole lot of information that we need to dive into with this video because now more than ever, you may have a lot of questions on who you're actually going to be starting this week. And hopefully by the end of the video, you're feeling a little bit more confident with your running backs for Week 7. But before we jump into all of the rankings, we have got another giveaway from our friends over at Pristine Auction. And if you want to be eligible for this giveaway or any other giveaways that we do, all you got to do is head on over to pristineauction.com and sign up for a free account using code word headliners. When you do that, you're going to get a $10 off coupon for your first purchase on their website. But more importantly, you're going to be eligible for this giveaway. And since he bounced back and had such a good week against Los Angeles, it might be the best time to give away this autographed mini helmet for Dak Prescott. If you want an opportunity to win this, whether you're a Dallas Cowboys fan or whatever, you just want it for your man cave, again, head on over to pristineauction.com, use code word headliners when you create a free account, and you're going to be eligible to win this by liking the video and leaving a comment down below. All right, Headliner Nation, we're diving right into it right now, and the number one guy in my rankings is the guy that I promised would be here in my start and sit video. It is Kenneth Walker week. Walker this week is getting an Arizona defense that is currently ranked 24th against the run and has allowed the third most fantasy points to the running back position. Kenneth Walker continues to find the end zone. In this past week, he got over 90% of the running back snaps. That is insane considering there aren't a whole lot of running backs doing that right now. This might be a tough week for running backs, but if you own Kenneth Walker, you're already off to a great start. We've got Josh Jacobs at number 2 this week, and he's going up against a Bears defense that allows the 8th fewest rushing yards to the running back position, but they allow the 6th most fantasy points to the running back position. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they allow a ton of receptions and a ton of receiving yards to running backs. And even though Josh Jacobs has not been that good on the ground this year, he's been excellent through the air. He's getting a ton of volume on that side of the football, and that is exactly what we're looking for this week. Running backs number 3 and 4 are going to be coming from the same matchup this week. Saquon Barkley and Brian Robinson, the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants. Both of these defenses are not able to stop the run a majority of the time. Right now, the New York Giants are ranked 31st against the run, and the Washington Commanders are ranked 23rd. Now, fantasy points wise, they do end up giving up a few less fantasy points than what we would like to see in a high leverage, high RB1 matchup, but they're still going to get a decent amount of volume. Now, the last time I had Brian Robinson this high, unfortunately, he let us down, but this is a good matchup, and hopefully Washington runs the football a little bit more, but more importantly, hopefully their defense doesn't put them in a hole like the last time I had them this high, because when I had them up this high, Washington got dominated on the defensive side of the ball. They got game scripted out and they couldn't run the football. Given the fact that the New York Giants offense really can't do much of anything, Brian Robinson should be in pretty good position this week to take advantage of some nice volume, where Saquon Barkley last week, his first game back from that injury, saw 26 carries. I would absolutely assume that they're going to be doing the same thing this week, especially if Daniel Jones is not able to go again. They tried to establish the run as much as possible against the Buffalo Bills. Now, it wasn't until the fourth quarter where Barkley snapped off a couple of bigger runs that he looked better, but maybe chalk up those first 3 quarters to that ankle just not being loose and not being able to really cut and explode the way that he would like to. Hopefully with another week of resting, he'll be ready to go against Washington, and he can take advantage of it with some high upside given all the volume he will have. DeAndre Swift going up against the Miami Dolphins. Now, if this matchup would have been a couple of weeks ago, I may not have had DeAndre Swift ranked as high as I do right now, given the fact that Miami will probably be up on Philadelphia and will probably put them behind the ball early. Maybe they keep up. Philadelphia hasn't been playing great, especially last week. But if we go into negative game script for the Philadelphia Eagles, DeAndre Swift may not have gotten as many touches as we would like. However, last week, he saw a pretty large increase in his target share. He had 9 targets last week, which was second, right behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So even if Philadelphia were to go down early to Miami, my hope is that DeAndre Swift sees enough work in the passing game and a potential touchdown that we find him inside the top 5 this week. Unfortunately, Austin Ekeler is going to carry a little bit of risk for me this week, going up against a Chiefs defense that is ranked 12th against the run right now, but allows the 6th fewest fantasy points to the position. Now, the reason that I have him a little bit lower than the consensus right now is because Kansas City allows some of the fewest receptions and receiving yards to the running back position so far this year. And given that it is a tough matchup on the ground where Austin Ekeler may not put up the rushing yards that we would need, we would hope that an RB1, like a high RB1 upside performance, would be offset with some work in the passing game. But if Kansas City is able to limit him in the passing game the way they have other running backs this season, that is where Austin Ekeler could see a huge decline in upside and unfortunately would not fall inside the top 5. And that's why I've got him at number 6 this week. But it's almost a completely different storyline on the other side of the football in that game, where I have Isaiah Pacheco right behind Austin Ekeler. Now, Pacheco, to me, actually may end up being a little bit safer than Ekeler this week, even though Ekeler will continue to have more upside. The Los Angeles Chargers, they allow the 8th fewest rushing yards in the NFL right now, but they allow the 7th most fantasy points to the running back position. And that's because they're the complete opposite of the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't allow a whole lot of yards on the ground, but they allow a lot more work in the air to their running backs, and running backs score easier against them. So for Isaiah Pacheco, we're hoping for a touchdown, and we're hoping that we can get him like maybe 5 targets this week with a pretty decent big play mixed somewhere in between. This is going to be a back and forth game where more than likely we'll be throwing the football quite a bit, and hopefully that will put Isaiah Pacheco in an opportunity to reach the top 7. So I'm a little conflicted with number 8 in my rankings in Travis Etienne. I would like to go higher with him, but I am taking into account the fact that the New Orleans Saints right now have allowed the 9th fewest rushing yards per game and allow the 2nd fewest fantasy points to the running back position. But when you take a look at the players that they've gone up against this year, they haven't really faced a running back like Travis Etienne since week 1 against Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry they faced week 1, but since then, they faced Miles Sanders and the Carolina Panthers. They faced an Aaron Jones-less Green Bay Packers. They faced Rachaad White and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ramondre Stevenson really didn't have an opportunity to do anything when they faced the Patriots because New Orleans won 34-0. The run game was completely game scripted out. And then last week was Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. So they haven't really faced a running back like Travis Etienne since week 1. So how good is their defense against the run? I think we're going to find out a little bit more this week when it comes to Travis Etienne. Now, I am being cautious with the ranking because just because they haven't faced great performers up to this point doesn't mean that their defense still isn't good enough to shut down Travis Etienne. But like we saw last week, my hope is that Travis Etienne can find the end zone at least one time, even if he were to put together maybe 50 or 60 yards on the ground and just isn't as efficient as we would like. Whether you're happy with Bijan Robinson because he still gives you a consistent floor, or whether you're upset with Bijan Robinson because he hasn't given you a great ceiling all year, he's still going to be inside the top 10 for me this week and probably will continue to be even if he doesn't reach the ceiling that we would like. His work in the passing game is just way too much right now to rank him outside the top 10. He's too safe in that regards. So even though he's not reaching high RB1 status like a lot of you really want him to, he's still finishing as an RB2 most week because of how much work he's getting in the passing game. And going up against Tampa Bay, that's currently ranked 7th against the run and allows the 9th fewest fantasy points to the position, it's going to be another tough matchup for him this week. But once again, if he's getting 8 targets a game and he catches 6 of those points alone should put him inside the top 12, especially this week. Raheem Mostert is facing the number 2 ranked rushing defense in the NFL this week, and one that allows the 4th fewest fantasy points to the running back position. High upside is going to be there? Absolutely not. But we know that Raheem Mostert can score from anywhere, and he can rip off a big play from anywhere. And if Miami can just continue to throw the football well, it could open up some lanes for Raheem Mostert to have a big play. And if he can do that, he could finish inside the top 10 if he finds the end zone. Jacksonville currently allows the 3rd fewest rushing yards in the NFL right now, and Alvin Kamara will be getting that tough defense this week on Thursday Night Football. For Alvin Kamara, really, we need him to make his presence known in the passing game. If we can get this guy like 7, 8, 9 targets, even double digits would be better, then maybe he finds himself inside the top 10. But he's going to have that passing game work and score a touchdown if you're looking for anything higher from him. This is a tough matchup on the ground, maybe 40 or 50 rushing yards, and Jamal Williams will be back this week. So there is a potential that he could see a few red zone opportunities and take away that scoring upside that Alvin Kamara had the last couple of weeks. Now, Aaron Jones is still listed as questionable as of this recording and might not even suit up against the Denver Broncos this week, but we're going to keep an eye on it. And if he plays this week, even if he's limited, I'm still going to have him at number 12. This is way too good of a matchup going up against the worst defense in the NFL. Even if he only plays 15 snaps this week and gets maybe 8 touches, one of those touches could absolutely go to the house at any point. Now, we'll have to keep an eye on it. If he doesn't end up playing this week, clearly he'll drop completely out of the rankings, and I'll bump A.J. Dillon up a few spots, who we'll talk about here in just a minute. But for Aaron Jones, even a limited Aaron Jones this week is a running back 1 potential Aaron Jones. James Cook at number 13, and a lot of you continue to show frustrations that he hasn't reached the ceiling that we would like, but honestly, James Cook has one of the safest floors of all running backs right now. This is a guy that continuously can put together some RB2 performances for you. He's averaging 14 touches a game, he's averaging over 80 total yards per game, and he's still averaging over 10 fantasy points per game. So even if he's not seeing the upside that we would like, it's okay, because he's still giving us a decent floor and somebody that we can toss in as our RB2 and know that we won't lose the week because of him. This week, he gets New England. Okay, middle of the pack defense when it comes against the run. Hopefully Buffalo will rely on running the football a little bit more this week, and James Cook gets over 14 carries this week instead. This is also the 3rd matchup where I have the 2 running backs right next to each other, because Ramondre Stevenson on the other sideline, I'm moving up to 14 this week after scoring last week. Now, the Buffalo Bills are ranked 25th against the run right now. It's much easier to run the football against them this year than it has been in the past. So Ramondre Stevenson will see a little bit of an increased value this week because of that. But we can't get too excited, because we don't even know who the quarterback will be for the New England Patriots as of yet. Is Malik Cunningham going to get work this week? Something that we'll definitely want to keep an eye on. But if they do go with a Bailey Zappi or they go with a Malik Cunningham, Ramondre Stevenson hopefully will be a big part of that game plan, where they can dump it off to him a little bit more often. They can get him involved in the passing game. We saw a big increase in his targets last week, which is really where we need to get back to with him to put him back into this high RB2 type of conversation. But however it goes, if New England wants a shot to win this week, Ramondre Stevenson has to be a big part of that. The Green Bay Packers defense currently allow the 5th most rushing yards and the 4th most fantasy points to the running back position. That spells a really nice floor this week for Javonte Williams, all the way up at number 15 for me. Hey, if he can score a touchdown, he'll definitely go higher. But if Denver can at least keep the game somewhat balanced for a while at the beginning by running the football, Javonte Williams should put up a decent amount of yards. I've got Christian McCaffrey at number 16 right now. We're not going to know his status until probably closer to Monday Night Football. As of this recording, he's not been ruled out, but there is still a possibility that he's limited. And if he does play this week, I do expect him to be somewhat limited, and that's why I've got him all the way down at 16. Now, if reports were to come out and say, hey, Christian McCaffrey not going to be limited, absolutely good to go, then obviously this is a guy that we bump all the way up, probably into the top 5. Maybe not number 1 overall, because again, just playing it safe in case he sees a reduced workload of some kind, but he will go a lot higher. For those of you out there that are going to be asking about whether or not you should start him, this is just just one of those situations where if you don't have Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason, you might need to find somebody else, especially if you need to set your lineup prior to finding out more about Christian McCaffrey. I've got Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford right next to each other at number 17 and 18. Now, for the Jerome Ford truthers, I even told you in the start and sit video that he could be a pretty decent start this week and have a safe floor. He's not going to have the upside that a lot of you think he has, though, because Kareem Hunt is going to see a decent amount of work still. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more passing work for Kareem Hunt and we see Jerome Ford get more work on the ground. Now, the biggest question will be is how does the game script go for this? Does Cleveland fall behind? If they do, probably a little bit more Kareem Hunt. Does Cleveland go out ahead and stay ahead of Indianapolis? Then maybe a little bit more Jerome Ford. That will be something to keep an eye on, though. But if Cleveland can go up by maybe a couple of touchdowns, Jerome Ford at that point may have more top 12 upside than what we thought going into the matchup. But either way it goes, we could start both of these guys and probably be okay with their performance at the end of the day. A.J. Dillon at number 19, again, a really good matchup going up against Denver. And if we find out that Aaron Jones doesn't play or is even limited, A.J. Dillon is going to go up quite a few spots for me. I could actually find him as high as RB15 the more we learn about Aaron Jones later in the week. So keep an eye on it and make adjustments as necessary. But as of right now, I'm going to find a happy medium and go with 19th for A.J. Dillon. At number 20, going up against Cleveland, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor, and I will have him over Zach Moss this week because I believe Jonathan Taylor will see more snaps than what Zach Moss does this week. Now, there's always a chance that if Indianapolis goes down and goes down big to Cleveland, that they don't risk it with Jonathan Taylor and they just go with Zach Moss a majority of the game. So if that happens, Zach Moss could absolutely flip with Jonathan Taylor. But as of right now, I believe that they're going to do what they can to get Jonathan Taylor more workload this week. And if that happens, he probably ends right here, given the fact that he'll still see a few more snaps in the passing game. For now, I'm going to have Roschon Johnson at number 21 going up against Las Vegas. This is a good matchup, but Johnson has not cleared the concussion protocol as of this recording. So if he doesn't end up clearing by Sunday against Las Vegas, then Dante Foreman will bump up to number 21, and I'll leave him here instead of Roschon Johnson. Jahmyr Gibbs all the way up to number 22. As of this recording, he is expected to play going up against Baltimore. Now, on the ground, he doesn't have a whole lot of upside. We need to get him going through the air. But if he is healthy and playing this week and active, then he absolutely will end up being the lead back, and I'll keep him right here as a low-end RB2 because it is such a tough matchup. Alexander Mattison at number 23. At the end of the day against San Francisco, I could absolutely see us looking through his stat line and being like, oh, Alexander Mattison ran the ball 12 times for 32 yards. And oh, he added a touchdown in garbage time because San Francisco was up by so much they didn't even care at the end of the game. That's what you're hoping for with Alexander Mattison this week. It is not a good matchup, and I definitely don't see a whole lot of upside on the ground. Rachaad White, he's got another tough matchup, and he has not played well at all this season. Going up against the Atlanta Falcons, really what you're hoping for from Rachaad White is a little bit of passing game work, but right now, Atlanta, they're ranked 11th against the run, but they allow the third fewest fantasy points to the running back position. I don't trust Rachaad White this week, but given the state of the running back position this week, you might not have any choice. Jordan Mason at number 25, I'm putting him inside the top 30. I do believe he'll end up being the backup or the main backup to Christian McCaffrey this week. Elijah Mitchell is healthy, but he's still coming off an injury. Jordan Mason has looked good each of the last 2 weeks, scoring a touchdown. I feel like he's probably deserving of it at this point. Now, obviously, that could change, but I do believe Jordan Mason will still be the number 2 behind Christian McCaffrey. And even if McCaffrey plays, Jordan Mason could still find himself inside the top 30. Zach Moss at number 26, again, tough matchup against Cleveland. Already talked about it with Jonathan Taylor a little bit. I could easily see these guys flipping positions as well. Zach Moss is still going to be in the top 30 for me this week. Given the state of the running back position, he probably still sees a few targets in the passing game just like him and JT did see last week. But if Indianapolis ends up going down by quite a bit at the beginning of the game, then at that point we could see a situation where Zach Moss flips with Jonathan Taylor because Indianapolis doesn't want to risk it and they just take JT off the field at the end of the game. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren at 27 and 28 going up against the LA Rams, who allow the 7th fewest fantasy points to the running back position, even though they're ranked 21st against the run right now in the NFL. Really, this week for Najee Harris, you're hoping for a touchdown. And Jaylen Warren, Warren, this Rams team does a pretty good job of limiting the passing concept to running backs. And that's why I've got Najee Harris still a little bit higher than Jaylen Warren, because Jaylen Warren earns his fantasy points in the passing game. Also, Deontay Johnson potentially back this week. If that ends up being true as well, and he's not limited in any way, shape, or form, then Jaylen Warren could also see a little bit of a hit for his passing work. Jaleel McLaughlin at number 29 definitely has an opportunity to see some passing game work this week, especially if Green Bay is able to go up early and often on the Denver Broncos. Jaleel McLaughlin is actually a really good receiving back right now. I've got some nice information I might share in a members only video this week, but for now, just keep in mind that his work in the passing game is what would put him here. And at number 30, Justice Hill going up against the number 1 ranked run defense in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. Justice Hill really has to score a touchdown this week, and the hope would be he would see a little bit of work in the passing game as well. All right, let me quickly fly through a few guys that are just on the outside looking in. Zach Evans at number 31. A lot of people were quick to scoop him up after we saw injuries to Kyren Williams and Ronnie Rivers for this week. But the Rams already brought in my boy Darrell Henderson, and who is familiar with the system, and Royce Freeman to the active roster. Zach Evans is no guarantee to just walk away with it this week. Dante Foreman at number 32. We already talked about it with Roschon Johnson. If Roschon Johnson misses, Dante Foreman goes up to his ranking. But if Roschon Johnson plays, Dante Foreman falls completely outside of my rankings for this week. Gus Edwards at number 33. He's going to see the bulk of the volume in between the 20s going up against the Detroit Lions. But given how tough the run defense can be for them, he doesn't have a whole lot of upside for me this week. Elijah Mitchell, he's just on the outside looking in as of right now because we don't have more news on Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey plays, I could see all three of these guys getting some snaps and getting some touches. If Christian McCaffrey doesn't play, then I could see Elijah Mitchell jumping into my top 30 and having some value close to Jordan Mason. Keontae Ingram and Emari Demercado are both going to be in here going up against Seattle. Keontae Ingram will probably see a majority of the touches on the ground, but will have less upside than Emari Demercado, who will likely see a majority of the snaps in passing down situations and a majority of the targets through the air. Jamal Williams at number 37, definitely some touchdown potential on Thursday night going up against Jacksonville. Jeff Wilson Jr. and Salvon Ahmed. Really, this matchup is so tough, I don't want to start either of these guys, but I know people are going to ask about them. Raheem Mostert, I'm okay going with. If you've got to start either Jeff Wilson Jr. or Salvon Ahmed, you're kind of screwed this week anyway, so really just roll the dice and feel free to go with either one. It doesn't really matter. There you have it, Headliner Nation, my top 30 running backs with a few extra guys that are just on the outside looking in. Do me a favor, everybody, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications if you are new here. And if you want a shot at that signed Dak Prescott helmet, make sure that you leave me a comment down below and let me know what running back in the rankings you think will surprise us and finish as a top 12 player this week. Headliner Nation, peace out, stay safe, and stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.